Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another members vlog. This is where I answer questions submitted by both my patrons and people who are a member of the channel on the old YouTubes. Firstly, I'll give you a bit of an update. It is the 2nd of February as I record this, and this is Australia. It's very, very, very muggy. I'm up here in Sydney at the moment. I've just been to an auto brunch meet this morning. I've got the Bathurst 12 hours is on the telly. I'm just taking a bit of a time out because I've just got a moment to answer some questions. So I will say, first and foremost, I'm still about a month behind. So the New Zealand road trip still sees me in very early January. Exactly a month ago, in fact, the latest episode, driving up from Wellington to Wanganui, and so that's been done. Some very interesting stuff still to come from New Zealand, and the road tests are about the same, pretty similar, although the one that goes live tonight on the 2nd is actually one I recorded on Christmas Eve. It's the Ford Falcon XR6 with a Barra engine, which hopefully you've seen by now. Good times. Still got a Trekker to come, the Kiwi Legend, so that will still be coming in the video. That'll probably be my final road test. It wasn't quite my final one that I recorded, but I think it's a good way to end New Zealand, is with a Trekker road test. The trip in Australia is operating rather differently. I'm not buying a car, that's the first key thing, and I'm not travelling around in quite the same way. I've got some very generous hosts here in Sydney, have hosted me for best part of 2 weeks now. It will be 2 weeks when I move on. I've driven some of their cars. They've lent me their moderns for me to drive around in, so that's been great. So I've been able to get out and do road tests. I did one yesterday, a Ford Cortina 6 in temperatures of about 44-45 degrees centigrade, which is the most unpleasant thing I've ever done. So unfortunately that video will be hampered by the fact that I was almost ruined by the weather. That was dangerously hot conditions, but scheduling meant I had to do it then. That was the only chance I had. So not ideal, but I did it. And I also tested a 6-cylinder Marina, so there is some top content coming your way, but sadly probably about a month from now. So don't worry, Australia will be coming, but obviously I don't want to jump the schedule and start publishing Australian stuff when the series is still back in New Zealand. So these vlogs are out of sequence. The road tests will drift out of sequence with the road trip as well, which is why I've kind of split those out. Museum tours I've also split out as well. Not that I think I've got much more to come on museum tours, but there's a few private collections I might have had a nose around. So yeah, I'm just trying to keep the trip focused on the trip, and hopefully it'll all make sense at some point. But without further ado, let's jump straight into the questions. I'm going to start on Patreon, and the first question comes in from Colin Rook. With Betty out of the picture, oh, my 2001 Ford Fairmont AU, what car do you plan getting? Well, I think I've just covered that. I'm not buying another car in Australia. What I can tell you is that I have bought a car blind in the UK for more money than I've spent on a car for a very long time. I'm overjoyed that people are offering me support like this accommodation, because it means I've actually got funds to buy something a bit special when we get back. Obviously it's a bit special by HubNut standards, and it's a lot of money by HubNut standards. It's small fry in the big scheme of things, but very exciting. I've bought that car. You can hear parrots and stuff in the background, mostly to avoid having to get the bus back to Wales. So laziness, and also a very interesting car. Already have plans for it. Going to be fun times. And oh, and Colin's in Canada, so hello Canada. Finn Cow asks, what influences has New Zealand had on the types of cars you're interested in? Has it given you any inspiration for different cars you would like to own at some point? I quite like that question. I'm really enjoying following your journey. Thanks, Finn. Yeah, I think the Fairmont has really opened me up to the world of big, relatively simple cars. But there's something we don't really get in the UK. Not in sort of recent history anyway. But yeah, I miss Betty. So there's sort of an answer. Chris Berry asks, what do you plan on doing in Australia? Are you visiting any historic landmarks? Yes, there will be a few landmarks, but it won't be quite the travel log it has been. There will be days where I go and see interesting stuff and days when I don't. Glenn Rhea wants to ask 2 questions. That's cheeky. What Australian New Z specific cars do you think would have sold well, not just in the UK but worldwide? None of them. There were various attempts to market Antipodean cars elsewhere in the world, and they generally failed because the conditions here are just pretty much like nothing else. What do you think gives a car a bit of character? That's a tricky one to answer as well. I wasn't expecting Betty de Fairmont to have character, but she definitely did. So there you go, there's a cop-out. Tony Sander, given the success of HubNut Goes Global, do you have any thoughts about HubNut Goes Global 2? Hope you're enjoying Australia so far. I am, Tony. Yeah, I definitely want to do more travelling, but I'm not sure I want to do vastly more travelling in 2020. This trip has been exhausting, and as it is when I get back to the UK, I need to take some time out and actually recover. So I'm not going to do any long haul flights again this year. Just one more to get back to England, and yeah, that'll be me done with long haul travel. But obviously there's a lot of the world I want to see, the Americas, Canada, but there's more of Europe. You know, there's all the Asian countries as well. There's a lot of travelling I would like to do, and I think it would be very interesting. But I'll tell you something for now, definitely not going to attempt a trip on this scale again. 5 months has just been too long. Rick Howlett, how do you find all these wonderful cars you bring us? That's because of YouTubers generally, although I must give a big shout out to Dion in Melbourne, who has been hugely helpful finding cars here in Australia, even in the Sydney area, nowhere near where he lives. So thank you, Dion, that help has been much appreciated. Have you ever had a bump driving an unfamiliar car on an unfamiliar road? No. I mean, testing cars is always difficult, but I certainly stay a lot more respectful of grip limits and in someone else's car than I would in my own. I'll happily thrash the pants off my own cars, but if you're driving someone else's car, you've got to be a bit more careful. I have had issues with tests in Australia. We'll have news on that coming forward, but yeah, not everything has been perfect here in Australia, but no bumps. Robin Kappa, just saw your tweet regarding the New Zealand Yugo video being popular in Serbia. Any video surprised you with popularity in odd places? Well, I think the Proton in Malaysia going viral, that was quite amusing. Sadly, my old Proton got stolen from the next owner and trashed, and that was very sad. Oh, Robin Kappa's sneaking in with another question. Lots of Kiwis think our roads, quality and capacity, are awful. I think they haven't travelled. Thoughts? Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Robin. Kiwi roads, generally nothing to complain about. Traffic in Auckland is absolutely terrible. Wellington is fairly busy, but there's a lot of investment in infrastructure going on at the moment. So, yeah, they are trying to improve Wellington. Auckland is a bit more tricky. It's just, yeah, overpopulated massively. You've got 1.8 million people in a very tough geography up there. It's very splintered, lots of islands, lots of people crammed in. I don't know how you're going to sort that one out. John Rowlandson, what are your dates for Melbourne? Probably from mid-Feb, I should think. I haven't actually got tickets booked yet. I'm going to Tasmania on Wednesday the 5th, is that? Yes, Wednesday the 5th is when I go off to Tasmania. I haven't booked Tasmania to Melbourne yet. I'll sort that out. But will you be at the Bathurst 12-hour GT race? No, but it is on the telly just behind me at the moment. So I'm hoping nothing interesting is happening while I'm recording this video. That's the end of the Patreon questions. Let's go and check out the ones left on my community page on Facebook. So this won't work if you're on a telly, but if you're on a computer or a smartphone, if you go to youtube.com/HubNut, you will see a community tab, and I'll make posts there occasionally. I ask questions there as well. And for the paying members, I can set it to just paying members, but I only do that really when I'm asking the questions, because it's one of the benefits. You lovely people contribute. Everyone else doesn't contribute, but I don't want you to miss out on the answers. So that's how this all works. Alan Funt, who I think I met today. Welcome to Sydney. Warm in it. It is. I don't know if you can see me sweating. Any plans for a meetup? We had one today, so that has been done. So that was good. That was at the St Ives Showground as an auto brunch meet, sort of cars and coffee type affair, organised by the North Shore Car Club. No, there's another word missing in there, but I spoke to them earlier and I knew I'd forget what their club was called. But a nice little meet, went along, very interesting cars, will be a video to follow. So yes, hello again, Alan. Cauliflower McPug, who did you sell Betty to? I sold Betty to a Hubnutter. And how near was it to you leaving? It was the day before I left. I said goodbye to Betty. Barry Davies, hi, after travelling around the islands, do you think it looked like Wales in parts but bigger? Maybe a bit, but I don't think there's really any comparison. Wales doesn't have volcanoes or mountains. It claims it has mountains, and Mount Snowdon just about qualifies, but nothing on the scale of New Zealand. And generally the scale is so different. There's nowhere in Wales where you can be 60 kilometres between towns. There's nowhere that remote. Yeah, a very different place. Where are we going next? Ohio Pete S2K. Have you ever thought about a Jarrett Jupiter test drive? No. Actually, I've never driven a Jupiter and I might like it, but I'm more drawn to the Javelin. Both cars use the same 1486cc flat 4 engine, both cars built in Bradford, of course, and very interesting design on both. So yeah, some Jarrett action when I get back definitely needs to happen, I think. But the list of cars I want to drive is enormous, so when I'll get around to it, yeah, I have no idea. Jerry Dude Bad, I noticed the 80s liftback Corolla caught your eye in the Darfield junkyard and was hoping to hear your thoughts on it. Never driven one, so I haven't really got any thoughts. I quite like the styling. And yes, I own one, and yes, it has rot. That doesn't surprise me at all. Andrew Hofler, been loving the videos and really appreciate the effort you go to with them. Thank you, Andrew. You've had some very interesting road tests so far. Wondering if there were any cars I was still hoping to drive. Oh yeah, there were plenty. And he says perhaps the VL Commodore. I haven't managed to get my hands on a VL Commodore yet. If it happens, I'll be really happy. But I can't see it happening. Unless you've got a VL Commodore and you would like to let me drive it and you live in Melbourne. If you do, then let me know. I would very much like to try one. Philip Green, can you remember the first car you drove and where? Yes, it was a Land Rover Discovery TDI 200 automatic prototype. I may have just repeated words, I'm very tired. That I drove on my schoolwork experience in 1993 at Eastnor Castle Proving Grounds. It was amazing. The first manual car I drove was my dad's Vauxhall Nova 1.2 Merit 4-door saloon. And yeah, I remember I just got in it and drove it. I've been watching people driving, all the pedals and everything, so I kind of had some idea, but yeah, quite pleased with that. Scott Fisher, would you have another Volvo estate after your free 740? Yes, I got a 740 for free and it broke. Go and have a search for that one on my channel if you want a good giggle. Recorded many years ago when I had much more hair. I wouldn't rule out a Volvo estate. In fact, I was eyeing up a Volvo 760 Turbo fairly recently, but since splurging my cash on my mystery car back home, that idea is out for now. Simon Redfern asks what your standout drive stroke place was in New Zealand. Oamaru on the South Island is one of the places that really surprised me. I really liked it there. Mount Taranaki was quite impressive as well. But yeah, it's hard to pick highlights. All of it's been marvellous. And Robert N Green 6 also asks, what's your favourite day in New Zealand? Yeah, I don't really do favourites, I just enjoy everything. I don't like to pick anything out. Saint Funny reports that his daughter has constantly stolen his HubNut t-shirts and now she is cool. Check the definition of cool there, I would. But I'm glad she's taking an interest. Aaron Smart, we know about your appreciation of good windscreen wipers, but what about washers? My Peugeot 406 had washers which sprayed a very fine mist. They were excellent and better than any other car. Yes, I think they also fit those to the Citroen C5 Mark 1 as well, that sort of mist all over the screen. I quite like those, although the mist does tend to cover the wiper arms. So really, I think on-blade systems are the best, although they are a little prone to clogging. Any advice on optimal washer adjustment? Well, it very much depends on the car, really, but you just want a nice fair mix, don't you? Mr. Mark UK1, how's the mighty Dacia going? I should get in touch with Rich and find out. I have no idea. At the moment, he won't be trying to get it on the road because it's winter, but I know he does want to get it MOT'd and on the road, and hopefully to some events this year. The Matt Brown Bill, I have a question about music. I guess you have heard of Vangelis. Yes, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. What do you think of Ask the Mountain? Never heard it. Sorry, I should have done some preparation before this video. Graham Bentley, glad you got to Australia safely. Here I am in Australia proving it. What single piece of modern technology would you like to have seen available for the era of cars you like, in order to make them safer or more reliable? Oh, that's a tricky one. What did I really appreciate on the Fairmont? Probably the cruise control, but generally the levels of peace and quiet. If I could have a 2CV that was actually kind on the ears, that'd be wonderful. Julian Knight, on your travels, have you visited northern Germany? Only very briefly, or any plans to do so in the future? No firm plans, but Germany is definitely a country I would like to appreciate more. I've not spent enough time looking at Germany. I keep passing through, going to other places. Righty asks whether I do any exercise to keep myself fit. Go off for the odd walk. That's about as active as I get. Aircrash Tupulov, I'm just loving this entire road series. Oh, if New Zealand is anything to go by, Australia will be a blast. They're going to be very different. Loves the Volkswagen Splitty backdrop in the thumbnail when I asked for questions. Yeah, that's a road test that's coming up. Capacula asks, what is the most useful thing you own? Probably the phone I'm talking to you on now. My little action cam gets very sound laggy on long video clips, and we're up to 17 minutes now, so I've stopped using that really, and well, I've stopped using that for long vloggy talky pieces like this. I use it for everything else, but this phone is amazing. I answer comments on it, I make videos on it, I publish stuff on it, keep up with comments and all sorts on it, Patreon and everything, all on this phone. So yeah, definitely the most useful thing I own. John Reed, have any views on new Dacias? Yeah, they seem alright. I've not driven any yet. The Duster I think is quite attractive. I don't like the facelift though. Sean Murray, how do you think COPA on YouTube is going to affect content makers on YouTube? This is stuff around child protection. I don't think it's going to affect me. I don't make stuff that's aimed directly at children, so I think I'll be alright, but it's a firm reminder that having all your eggs in one basket is not a very good idea, which is why I also have Patreon and a shop. These are independent income streams, although if I don't have the audience of YouTube, what's the point? It's a bit tricky. Generally I just hope everything works. Lloyd Vehicle Consulting asks, what car have you owned for the longest? Have any come close to the 20 years of 2CV ownership? Yeah, 20 years of Ellie this year, and no, nothing comes close. Took is now over 2 years, which is pretty extraordinary. I had a BX which I had over 2 years, a stripy BX estate, but the next one, I think I own my Peugeot 306D Turbo for 3 years. Otherwise, cars just come and go, churn. The Matiz I had for 18 months initially, and I've now owned for another 18 months. So yeah, the Matiz is adding up. Cole Blimp, thinking about heading back to Wales, what are you most excited about? Well, I'm most nervous about the cars actually working. Will I continue to make YouTube videos at this pace? I don't know. I make videos when they're good and ready, and upload them when they're ready, and that's kind of how it works. So I don't know how often I'll be doing it going forward. I would like to do a minimum of 3 videos a week, really, but we'll see what happens. Because I'm building up this huge buffer, it does mean when I get back to the UK, I can actually have a break, and oh my gosh, am I looking forward to that. Robert Brink, hope you're having fun in Australia despite the blistering heat. It really has been blistering. I'm very curious about your transportation. Will it be Ford again? Well, there won't be any Australian transportation, but it has been a Ford. There's been a Ford, there has been a modern Mini, and yeah, there's some interesting cars still to come. So yeah, thanks to all the people who are loaning me cars. Massively appreciated. Oh, that's a really long question, Robert. I think it's just basically saying that Ford and VW cars leave him feeling a bit cold. Yeah, modern ones, certainly. Paul Simter also asked what my vehicle plans are for Oz. I think I've talked about that. Do I have somewhere I want to visit? Yeah, I'm excited about Tasmania and Melbourne, to be honest. Zarko De Vale, is it true you do not like the Mark 1 Focus? I wonder where that rumour's circulated from. And why? Well, Triangle of Doom, terrible wiper design. But the overall look and feel of a Ford Focus Mark 1 I think is really quite good. The power bloke, just the heat isn't too draining on you. It has been, but this house is air conditioned. I'm sat outside to give you the real experience of me sweating. Are you finding it just as easy to find a variety of interesting cars in Australia? Yes, I would say I am. Yeah, there's some interesting cars here, but he says I think Australia has missed out on interesting cars in the past, and it is true. The fleet here is not as interesting as New Zealand. So the cars you see driving past on the road, much more modern and much more European and regular Japanese, the boring Japanese stuff, none of the oddball stuff we saw as imports over in New Zealand. So yeah, it's not as distracting driving around here, because the Australian stuff that I don't see in the UK, I've already seen in New Zealand, so I've kind of got used to it. But yeah, generally not as interesting. Richard Glossop, apart from the ukulele, what other musical instrument do you play? Pretty much anything, given a chance, but piano, bass guitar, and a drum kit given half a chance. McCarthy 1, what have you got in the plans post-Australia when you get back to the UK? Well, I'm probably not going to get all the cars out. I might well do separate startup videos on all of them, just to make sure they're all healthy. But yeah, I mean, clearly I want to try and get the Toyota Tercel welded up. On that point, someone in Melbourne has cut some chunks of Tercel out of a car in a scrapyard for me, which is brilliant. If anyone has any ideas on how I get them back home, do let me know. It would be good to have an option there. I'm not sure whether to try and ship them or whether I should try and package them up and take them as excess baggage. Not quite sure how to do that one, but that's very exciting. If there's enough solid Tercel to weld them into, but I think I'll take the gamble personally. Richie T5, the time in New Zealand has soon gone. It has. It was ages ago now. Have you any ideas what you will get and what will come back as a souvenir? Well, I think those bits of Tercel might be my souvenir. On my suitcases and my backpack, I'm so on my weight limit, I can't take anything back. So people keep buying me stuff. Someone today handed me magazines and a card for Super Cheap Auto, and someone else gave me a t-shirt, and I'm like, oh, don't keep giving me stuff because I can't take it home. There's going to come a point I'm just going to have to start giving stuff away just to get my suitcase under the right amount, because yeah, it's not good times. I've probably brought far too much stuff with me, to be honest, but it's really difficult. I bought a big bulky winter coat, which I've not needed here because it's roasting, but I was very glad of several times in New Zealand. So yeah, tricky, always tricky. Australia has lots of parallels with South Africa. Hope you will test an early Ford Territory. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I have been out in one as a passenger with the V6 engine, same engine as a Land Rover Discovery 3, I believe. And based on the Falcon and sort of grown into a big 4x4. So I'm quite intrigued by them, but I don't think I'm going to get my hands on one. I've had many car offers here in New Zealand, and I've had to actually start cutting back. So apologies to people in both Australia and New Zealand, because there are times I've just cut I've not been able to do cars that have been offered. And most of the time I've tried to get in touch with people and say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. But that's not always possible. The admin of this trip and trying to line up cars that I can get to and do all in one day, it's been hugely hard work. But yeah, I drove an Austin Kimberley last week and it was amazing. So yeah, video footage to come on that. That brings us to the end of questions. So yeah, I shall wrap that one up there and I'll get back to the Bathurst 12-hour race. But as ever, thank you ever so much for your support. January is a particularly tough month for YouTubers because the ad revenue that we kind of rely on plummets in January, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's just YouTube isn't selling as many adverts, so our cut of their revenue drops by quite an alarming amount. We're talking sort of 30-40%, which was a little bit scary. Oh, there goes the kookaburra. Thankfully the cockatoos haven't started yet because they make a right racket. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the trip. I'm looking forward to Tasmania next week, Melbourne later in February, but I really am starting to look forward to going home as well. So yeah, some very interesting road tests. Primarily what I've been shooting in Australia is road tests, and I look forward to sharing those with you. Some amazing cars, and I've met some lovely people along the way as well. So yeah, it's the people who are making this trip very easy. Traveling on your own to get quite lonely, frankly, but both in New Zealand and Australia, the people have been lovely, very generous with their time, with their cars, with their food. Yeah, I couldn't be more grateful. But yeah, the end is in sight, and I'm finding that quite pleasing as well. So I should say thank you very much yeah, for watching and for sticking with it. I'm going to get back to the racing. You can just see going on down there. That was one of those enormous BMWs, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Farewell.